Warriors. I am so honored today to bring my good friend Jan Edwards to you. Jan is the president of Paving the Way Foundation, based in Florida. She is a presence on the local, state, and national level. And I want Jan to explain everything about what she does. She truly is one of my favorite warriors, getting the work done, boots on the ground. She is engaging, educating, and empowering. And warriors, you know, we talk about the 3 E's all the time. So welcome, Jan, to the Warriors.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Lynn. As we were chatting beforehand, it's one of those, I love collaborating with fellow warriors because that's the only way we win a war, is by standing shoulder to shoulder and battling the true evil that we are up against. So it is an unequal honor to be on with you and be able to speak to your audience of warriors, as well as we just really equip them. That's really what we're up to doing, is equipping people, right?
That's it.
And that's what we do. It's what we do best. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Well, you know, Jan, the only thing I think that can make a difference, in my opinion, is training, educating, raising awareness, right?
Yes.
In the community, in the home, in the community, and then also working on ending demand. Like in my world, that's the only thing, with all the noise around us and everybody's so overwhelmed. So I want everybody watching this and listening to learn a little bit more about you and why you're one of my favorite people, Jan Edwards. I want to remind everybody the website, pavingthewayfoundation.org. Please, all of you, go read, learn more, help Jan and Paving the Way. Now, Jan, how'd you get started in all of this?
Yeah, so my journey in this fight against human trafficking, I'm gonna get a little context prior. So I spent most of my adult career in the telecommunications industry, working for one of the top Fortune 500 companies, right? In marketing and advertising. So business runs in my blood. I understand corporate America. I understand the whole collaboration is huge in business, right? So I was at the UN Get Health meeting 2013, and I met this extraordinary man. We've all been to a conference where you meet someone or you see someone speak and you're like, I got to get to know them. So he was one of those people. And we exchanged cards, and then we exchanged some text and some emails, and one email followed the next. And I actually said, I'm really looking forward to talking with you, because at the time I was working for a medical device company. And he said, Jan, I'm planning a trip to Ethiopia. We'll have to connect when I get back. And I'm like, great, not a problem. Send pictures, have fun. Let me know how it goes. And he sends me an email right back and says, do you want to go?
Wow.
It's not every day you get invited to go to some place like Ethiopia. Okay. But let alone to do a mission trip. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. I remember I was sitting at lunch. My mom was across from me. My daughter was next to me. And I'm like, I just got invited to go to Ethiopia.
I know, that's like tremendous. And that you actually went, that's like big.
I'm just a yes to life, Lynn. And that's funny. People,
that's infectious, Jan. I love that about you. Infectious.
Thank you. Yeah. People have this Jan, you're so this, put in whatever adjective people say about me. And like, look, I just do things. I'm a yes to life. And, I'm really out and I'm committed that people win. Like they get a say in how their life goes. And thirdly, I honor my word. That's really it. I am no more extraordinary than any other person listening. But those are the 3 things that, as a human being, I have a foundational, relationship with God. And that makes a massive difference, because I pretty much do what he tells me to do, just easier, and not like in some real funky manipulative way. But I ask, he listened, he said, and I go. So that was one of those things. So I went, and it was there that I witnessed human trafficking. It was just a moment in time. If anybody who's listening has been on a mission trip, at the end of the day, you're toast. You're tired, you're hot, you're sweaty, you want to shower, food, sleep. That's it. And I was looking out the window because I didn't want to talk to anybody, right? You're done. And I saw 2 older men and 2 younger girls, and it just didn't look right. And I remember it's sitting here and going, what? That was weird. What, like you'd start questioning, what did I just see? What was that? And when I got to my sponsor's house, he's like, oh yeah, that's human trafficking. Like, let's go have a cup of coffee or tea. It was weird how nonchalant it was. And I looked at him and I said, hang on a second, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and he goes, Jan, he goes, we have 4.5 million orphans in Ethiopia. We're the #1 source of human trafficking into the Middle East. I remember my brain just swirling a bit, and maybe some of your viewers are dealing with that too. And I go, hang on a second. I said, are you telling me people are selling people? Now remember, this was 2013, before R. Kelly, before Maxwell, before
Right.
Epstein. And he looked at me rather incredulously. He's like, Jan, yeah, where you been? I go, well, Orlando, happiest place on earth. Right.
Right.
And it was there that God laid it on my heart. And I came home and I started to do some asking of questions and looking. Because I'm clear, Lynn, I don't know everything, but I do know a lot of people. So I picked up the phone, I started talking to people, and I talked to the FBI, Homeland Security, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, along with survivors. And I all asked them the same question. Why is no one talking about this? What's missing? It would make a difference. And they all answered the same thing: awareness. Well, I spent my career in advertising and marketing. That was something I could do. So I sat down, started writing a curriculum, and I thought, and when I learned that kids were the target, I'm a mom, right? It's not okay with me. And I'm like, okay, well, if kids are the target, I'm going to talk to parents. How do you think that went?
Well, I can only imagine. I mean,
yeah, parents don't want to hear about it. Parents don't want to talk
No.
about it. They just don't want to talk about it.
And I don't blame them, Jan. I don't blame them.
No, there's not a fault or blame thing
Right.
here. And I was not going to be thwarted by someone's fear and worry and concern. I was going to do it because our kids' lives were at risk. I'm like, okay, not a problem. I'll go talk to kids. And I wrote and produced an award-winning film called Trapped in the Trade.
Good. I'm glad you're bringing it up. Right.
Yeah. And it shows the intentional grooming and recruitment of children by children. It's a short film. It's the basis of all our training. And after the film, we engage in a very lively conversation with the young people because they watch it. They watch the manipulation. They watch the coercion. They watch the grooming. And they can see it happen, play out before their eyes. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow. And then we move it to the online platform, right? Same thing happens. It's just online. And we ask, I'm a huge fan of the Socratic method of education. So we ask really great questions and have them come up with their answers. Because I don't know what it's like to be a teenager right now. I can get a sense of it because of all the kids we've educated. We've talked to over 18,000, young people and parents in the past 5 years. But for them to be like, God, what do I do? To really stop and do the critical thinking. And they come up with some brilliant answers about what actions they would take, and it's funny too, because they'll get a little ruffled up, the boys especially, going, well, I would do this, all the tough guy stuff. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that you would want to swoop in and save this person. I said, let's do the thinking. Let's back up 4 or 5 steps. What if, there's 2, 6 foot, 280-pound guys behind her, with guns? Would you use the same tactic? And then we really get them to do the thinking about what actions they could take. I said, because look, at some point in time in your life, you're going to be at a party, you're going to be at a bar, you're going to be at a barbecue, and you're going to see something that's off, and you're going to remember this moment, and you're going to know what to do. That's the whole purpose of my training, is I want to interrupt, I want to disrupt the cycle and empower young people to be able to take the actions to do so we can prevent it.
That is your mission statement, Jan. You're disrupting the cycle of human trafficking. And I'm glad you brought up, and why I adore you so in Paving the Way Foundation, is what I see, this lack of critical thinking. We're not teaching the kids critical thinking. So I'm always looking for holes in things. Like where are the holes that I can plug up, move in on, be different from everybody else. I am so happy. And I know you do that kind of work. And that is truly what is needed for success.
It really is. And it's funny, Lynn, because I'll say to the teachers, I'll look and I'll say that, be talking to them, and I'll kind of turn back to the teachers if they're behind you or in front of me. I'm like, look, I assert that we are not teaching you the critical thinking skills that you need. Right. And all the teachers are like, because we're teaching to tests. We're not teaching our kids to think. And quite frankly, I think that's a lot of where we are right now.
I agree with
that. We're not teaching people to think. And I just had this dialogue with one of my dearest friends, Lisa Haba, who is going after Twitter and Omegle and fighting for the, fallen, quite frankly. And I said, it's frightening to me that when I'm like, well, how about we do this? Or how about we do that? And people will be like, okay, well, just tell us what to do and we'll go do that. I'm like, no. I need you to do the thinking. Exactly. I need you to partner with me brain to brain for us to solve this, because I'm I'm not the be all end all. I've got lots of ideas, doesn't mean they're the right ones. And we need other people to bounce those ideas off to actually get the best one. You know, one of my favorite books is None of Us is as smart as all of us. It talks
Mhm.
about the training of the whales way back when in at SeaWorld and how they did it. And that's one of the tools and the keys, I think, in this fight, that why I value you and Tammy Tommy Butler and Rick Lane and, you know, Nikosi and the team there and the team at you know, all the recovery organizations and all the restoration organizations like United Abolitionist, is when we all work together as a
Right.
collective, we're unstoppable. We're unstoppable.
It's actually the only way. I mean, it's the only, talking about critical thinking and analysis. I'm always trying to do a lot of that and promote that, Jan. I don't know how else to do it except the way we're doing it, you know, in the home, in the school, in the community. And my hope is that that strengthens, you know, community by community, and we build out across the United States. But it's interesting because when I started doing this, the number one thing, we can agree, parents, dark, overwhelming. They don't want to hear about it. They do want to hear about it though, if it happens to their family,
They
their
do.
child, you know.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
we're in 2022. I think you'll agree with me, but you'll tell me this is an American crisis. You know,
Mhm.
not only a global crisis. Let's stick to right here at home. It is a national American crisis that is just, you know, the genie out of the bottle, not stopping, escalating. So we have a duty to go in there and educate those who can't deal with it, or those who don't want to. Or I'm getting every day, Jan, I would say to you almost every day, that doesn't happen here. I'm
Oh,
sitting in
every
the middle.
day.
I'm sitting in the middle of New York City. It doesn't happen here.
Every day. Well, and you and I
We
both know the movie Taken, the damage that's done to this fight.
so
And you
and
know,
also movies like, you know, even Pretty Woman, the whole thing. Well, we'll get into
yes.
that a little bit, you know, kind of glamorizing the media landscape. And I didn't even realize, Jan, you know, working in the entertainment field for so many years as I've done, until I went back at like this age to re-examine things or projects or, you know, the relationships, what was actually happening there. But
Yes.
that's we'll get into that in a little bit. How have you seen? So you started this around 2013, and
Mhm.
then you formed Paving the Way Foundation, Warriors, pavingthewayfoundation.org. Please support all of the great work of Jan Edwards, because she is making a difference and is successful at getting at human trafficking and educating our kids, parents, teachers, everybody, the community. Let's talk about now. You touched upon online digital
Mhm.
safety, because I'm all about that, because I think
Yes.
it's almost all originating in some way, shape, or form. Even if the kids, there's a new study that says 18 minutes, they can be groomed online. They're going out to meet somebody, a perfect stranger.
Yes.
We have to get at this digital safety. What
We do.
is wrong with everybody? This should be mandatory. I know I'm
I
asking.
know. I know.
This is
I
mandatory.
know.
Wait till you
Well,
see, Jan. I just received on last Friday the whole curriculum for public schools in New Jersey, what they're mandatory teaching. I can't even begin to tell you, but there's nothing about digital safety, or there's nothing about human trafficking or sextortion, none of that. So let's talk, just go for it, Jan, whatever you want to say.
yeah, you know,
That's a
one
loaded
of the
question,
things,
but you know.
no. One of the things I so appreciate about you is I can physically feel you shaking every adult in the country. Like, what are you thinking? You know, it's so obvious
It's
to
so
us.
obvious.
It's so obvious to us because we're in the fight. And, you know, I've been working with a production house because we're getting ready to do a podcast and a TV series
Oh,
with
good.
one of our favorite human beings, Joseph Scaramucci. And, you know, it's taken me over a year to have the executive producer on these shows really start to get it. You know, it's been bite-sized pieces. It's
Right.
been sending her my film. It's been sending her articles. It's been having her listen to podcasts like the one you did with Tammy Tommy Butler and Rick Lane, right, about the Earn It Act.
Right.
It's coming at it from multiple angles because our brain is not wired. The reason why people come back from war with PTSD is we're not designed for that. We're just not.
Mhm.
And then you put that same level of trauma on a personal level with a child. Our brain is not trained for that. It literally, that level of trauma literally rewires our brain. And because most of us can't even fathom harming another human being, let alone a child, we just can't be with it. Like our brain is like, nope, 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 nope. Like
Right.
it shuts stuff off. And it's like, nope, for the secondary trauma. Secondary trauma is huge in this field. So I have deep compassion for people that are actually even willing to hear what you or I or anybody in this fight wants to say,
Hmm.
in the education
Yes.
space. I have deep compassion for that because people that are willing to stand with our children are extraordinary, because we don't see how someone could be that way because we're not that way. Just doesn't make any sense to us, right? And then there's that I was with a friend of mine earlier today. We advocate for UNICEF as well. And there's a mental health bill sitting in the House, not moving, not going anywhere. Right. And it's been there for 2 years. And if there's a time for a mental health crisis bill to be passed, it's now. There are people in crisis today. There are suicides every 40 seconds.
Mhm.
Do the math on that. We're losing human
That's why
life
this
at
is an
an
American
exorbitant
crisis.
amount of rate. It is. This is the what Tammy likes to call it, the pandemic inside the pandemic. So bringing compassion to this conversation
Mhm.
and understanding that our world has been rocked for the past 2 years,
Right.
right? There are countries that have been at war for thousands of years. They walk every day to work, literally praying that they don't get bombed, because you just never know. People have walked to work, everything's fine. They walk back from work and there's a hole from a bomb, right? That could have been them had they left
Right.
earlier. So that level of cortisol and adrenaline and fear and all that, it's now become the normal for them. It's what they live in. The world has not experienced what it experienced the past 2 years. So you've got all of that chaos going on, all the uncertainty, all the discourse, all the divisiveness. And then you and I want to talk about human trafficking, right? Because that's our passion.
Well,
It's like,
yes,
it's like, I can't be with it anymore.
but
And
no,
so, and what I say to
yeah.
people is you know, this is something we can actually do something about.
Yes.
We can, in one conversation, we can educate a child to what's happening on this device that does not have their best interest in mind, and thwart, disrupt, stop that child from either continuing the conversation with that unsafe person or from sending an inappropriate picture. Because you and I both know big tech cannot be their own self-policer. They just can't. It was like the medical field, right? It was like telecommunications.
Right.
There's this drive to be more, have more, get more, see all of that thing inside the humanity of each of us. And we're not good at policing ourselves. There's a reason why there's life coaches and lots of gyms with body coaches and mindset coaches. And, we don't know all of it. And it takes someone else to sometimes to be like, okay, let's take a deep breath and reframe, right? Well, that's kind of how you and I get to be in this conversation, and a bunch of our other warriors. We get to be the ones that say, okay, take a deep breath. We're going to talk about something that's uncomfortable, and it can literally, not figuratively, literally save your child's life. And we're going to take it slow. We're going to take it at
Right.
your pace, and we're going to walk through it. And when I started to release the anger, and the word that my friend said today was assertively passionate, maybe, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. But it's like we're passionate with a little bit of an extra push because we know our children's lives are on the line. And I know you had Tammy and Rick on last week, and there's a very big number that it's costing us, the traumatic childhood experiences. It's like
Yeah.
480, is it million or billion?
It's Tammy quotes it as being basically combined $1 trillion. We'll round
Yep.
off. It's about
Yeah.
half a bill, 500 billion for what's being treated right now. in the medical community, mental health included, and another 500, I'm rounding off, billion for the untreated. And I always say numbers or stats or facts, whatever we have, the numbers are always higher because we don't
No.
have exact information. So right there, you think that Congress, you think the medical community, you think everybody would want to address this. But Jan, I will say you're far too kind compared to me. Because
but you know, I found anger doesn't work for me.
no, I'm not,
See,
I'm not,
I
I'm not
scare
angry. I'm not
people.
angry.
And that's just me. I scare people. When I get angry, I scare people.
But I'm
and
not
I
angry.
intimidate
I'm not
them.
angry. Here's what I want to say about that. I'm not angry at all because I do realize, and I'm in total agreement. This is not about like I even really want to shake people or, you know, it's that the lack of accountability, the lack of media attention, the lack of our elected representatives, the lack of our education system, ignoring all of this, as you, me, Rick, Tammy, all of us who work in this, we see the escalation, you know, during COVID, what's happening now, and it will only get worse. And the thing is, Jan, when I talk, you know, I break it down very basic because I know people, I want to reel them in and then get into it a little deeper. And they do want to know, but they're in disbelief that this is even going on. So I feel like that's why we're the chosen ones to deliver messaging and also some easy solutions, which I know you're so good at, some resources, because they also say, well, what do I do? What do I do? Before I even get to the part about, I'm going to give you some free resources or solutions, or here's a training, you know, what do I do? So it's like, oh, this is horrible. What do I do? So,
and it's powerful to leave people with actions to take. And
absolutely.
you and I are both women of action. I am not going to stand on the sidelines and vote on social media. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take action on the ground, and then I'm going to invite people to come with me. Right. And what I mean by that is, you know, we did a Facebook Live this morning, and, you know, I'm like, look, it's Senate Bill 3538. It's a really simple conversation. Go find your senator. Because by the way, we the people in that thing called the Constitution.
That people forget, actually. We the people.
Yep, that'd be us. And you pick up the phone and say, hi, my name's Jan Edwards. I live in Orlando, Florida. Here's my zip code. I'm calling to ask you as my senator, as my chosen representative, to support and co-sponsor Senate Bill 3538. Again, my name's Jan Edwards. I live in Orlando, Florida. Here's my zip code. Please co-sponsor Senate Bill 3538. Thank you.
That's it. House.gov, Senate.gov.
Less than 30 seconds.
No, but House.gov, Senate.gov will tell you who represents you if you don't know. And Jan, they do keep records. I always tell everybody.
They do.
I got a recording. I said, well, I don't care. You leave a message, because they absolutely keep records on constituents calling, and they will address that. You know, if they get enough calls,
they
will
have to answer. They have to log every voicemail they got.
Now, of course, here in New York, they answer me. They answer me here 2 years later, but that's another. But I just wanted to, but you know, they say, well, during COVID, we've been held up, but whatever. But I wanted to go back when I said you're far kinder, Jan, because people also ask me every day almost, why is this happening? And I have to honestly say, Jan, because so much money is being made from the sex industry, and money rules everything. We all know that. And then, you know, I don't like to give that answer, but that is the truth. The money being made, right? Bigger than the drug trade, the law enforcement tells me that I work with. Easier to traffic people, to do it online. I want you to explain, because there's also a lot of confusion. Parents don't understand, or concerned citizens or family members, this definition of human trafficking. I know we all use that same force, fraud, or coercion, but it kind of, you know, just human trafficking reminds people of cars and trucks and buses or something, but it has transitioned even since you began in 2013, or I began a few years ago, to online. So how do you explain to people at Paving the Way, what is human trafficking? How do you describe it?
Yeah. So, and I actually break it down even more and I learned this from one of my friends at our local DCF here. She breaks down human trafficking is a crime against a person. Human smuggling is a crime against a country. which I thought was so brilliant to
And
distinguish
so
that,
easy to
because people
remember. I love
collapse
that.
them.
Yes,
Mhm.
I'm using that for now on.
Yes, it's easy to collapse them. And because we passed the safe harbor law across the nation several years ago, we're clear as a country that no child would choose to be raped or part of a exploitation ring, to be harmed 15 to 25 times a night. No child, no 18-year-old and under, right, would choose that. So the definition of human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to have someone do something they would not normally choose to do. And when I'm in school, I remind the kids that has nothing to do with chores or homework.
Good.
Right. Yeah, no, you have to do your chores and you got to do your homework. And then we break it down from there. It's, you are feeling low. And lately when we've been going to schools, I've been addressing the environment because nobody's talking about what's been happening right with them.
Right.
Parents are still confused. And I'll say, look, it's been a heck of a couple of years, hasn't it? And Lynn, you just watch their shoulders drop. It's like, finally, somebody's gonna say something.
Wow. Right.
And I said, look, it's confusing. Mask, no mask, shot, no shot, school, no school, up is down is up, online, homeschool. I said, there's so much chaos happening and no one's talking to you about it. And so you feel alone and disconnected. And then we take you out of your one social environment for a period of time, right? Which has you become even more withdrawn. And where are you going to go? Here. It's where our kids connect. It's where our kids talk. We've done some surveys because I'm developing a mobile app to actually empower kids.
Oh, I love it.
And the questions that we ask them, they don't, like you and I either use text or maybe Messenger to message people. They use Snap and Instagram to message their friends, not text, which I found fascinating. I'm like, it's the same thing, but for them, it works for them because they spend a lot of time on Instagram, right? So it's addressing where they're at. And I'll say, look, at best, y'all are neutral, right? You're not super, super happy. You're not super, super depressed. You're just in this kind of neutral space. In that gray, your sadness, sorrow, loneliness, and all of those emotions that, quite frankly, none of us have ever been taught to be how to manage, right? We've never been equipped to how do you deal with depression? How do you deal with sadness and sorrow, right? In an effective way that's empowering versus just stuffing it down and not talking about it or acting it out in another particular way, right? We've never been really trained to deal with that. So I said, so where do you go to get your dopamine hit? And they all hold up their phones. I'm like, yeah, predators knew that. I said, so all it takes is that one day, and you remember vaguely something about your mom or your dad saying something about, don't talk to strangers. Well, he's a 16-year-old kid or she's a 14-year-old girl. They're cute. We have some similar interests. I'm feeling low today. I'm going to respond. And given the statistic you just said in 18 minutes, our kids are longing for love, connection, to belong, connection. Yeah. And here's this cute or attractive girl that wants to connect with me. Okay, it's a moment of weakness. And predators know that. And they're just waiting. It's like they're sharks circling the blood. They're just waiting. And they bond so quickly because their whole life is online. Everything. They know where we ate. They know when last time we went to a movie because kids post everything.
Well, they've grown up in this bubble.
They sure have.
So
so their whole history is on it. Their whole history is there. And it's super easy to create a relationship with someone when you know everything about them because it's all online and that's all predators do. And your kid could be sitting at the end of the couch, engaging in a conversation with who he or she thinks is a 14 or 15-year-old child, when in reality, it's a middle-aged adult, knowing exactly what to say. And, when I was on your podcast, Lynn, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this. If me and my 10 best friends ended up at the US Open in September, and you and I and all were all at center stage, and there's Serena Williams, right? And she says, Lynn, come on down and come play with me. Who would win? Serena. She's a professional tennis player. She beat most of us, right?
Right.
It's the same thing online. You've got a 45 middle-aged adult engaging with a 14 or 15-year-old child. Who's going to win that game? The adult. And so the biggest thing I can share with any young person that's listening, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Your prefrontal cortex, your decision-making part of your brain isn't fully developed yet. The past 2 years has been chaotic at best.
Right. I also want,
And
Jan, the parents, I'm really trying to get at the parents to educate
Mhm.
them about
Mhm.
what they're doing. Because as we
Yeah.
know, if they see something, they will
Mhm.
report to me, oh, I'm embarrassed. I say nothing, or I yell at my child. So it's very powerful what you just said. It's not their
It's not their fault.
and the
And
parents have
that's,
to understand and
yeah.
communicate. And I know it sounds simple. I actually had somebody the other day, they said, oh, you're so corny. I said, okay, well, I'm corny. I don't care. Communication.
Mhm.
We have to open it up because we know
Yeah.
that I've had parents say, well, if I bring it up, it'll make them more curious. No, we know by the age of 11, almost every kid has seen some kind of porn.
Mhm.
We know they have access in their home on their bodies to 3 different devices, their phones, Chromebooks, laptops. So we have to get in front of all of this and really get
Mhm.
at the parents uh, to understand, because our schools are not really addressing it. Our government
No, they're not.
wants,
And
yeah, and we
yeah,
have to do
well,
it. So what do you do with parents? Like how, so you've been talking about the kids a
yeah.
little bit and they're like,
So,
they're
yeah,
relaxed, and the parents, of course, remember, as you know, kids replicate.
they're like this, you know?
The parents don't, the parents
Yeah.
are trying to pay for gas and buy food. So this is like
Mhm. Oh,
criminal,
yeah.
because
Yep.
that's it. And like you pointed out, this is the last thing they can, nobody can monitor the kids 24/7. But
Mm-mm.
there
No,
are, let's start with, how do you talk to the parents? How do you get in there and make
sure.
some inroads with them? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, first explaining the distinction and the difference between human trafficking, human smuggling, and exploitation. And, we use our award-winning film a lot. The film does a lot of the heavy
Can we
lifting.
find that online, Jan? Can we find it? Where do we find it?
You can find the trailer. The film does not have a happy ending, and it leaves people in a particular emotional space. And it was written that way, it's designed that way. So
Mhm.
we can have the conversation afterwards, because it starts to break down that tough guy, tough gal thing. Like,
Right.
I've got it all figured out, when you're emotionally connected to a character, as we've all been in films, you're a little bit more open to talk. And I love my middle schoolers because they'll just, blurt it out. And there's nothing more rewarding than sitting in a classroom and having, 30, 40 kids screaming at the screen, don't take the drink, so
Wow.
it,
Yeah.
and so we start with the definitions, and our brains retain information 2 ways: with facts, data, and stories. So the reason why the film's so effective is it tells a story, right? So then we can give them facts to kind of hold on to it. We talk about bystanders and we talk about actions to take.
Mhm.
And then we really dialogue about what predators are doing online and how they're getting to your kids. And we address, this is a weird conversation to have with your child. It is. I get it, not a problem.
I get it.
But we have a great parent toolkit on our website. So it's pavingthewayfoundation.org/programs. You click on the drop down menu and it's called Parent Toolkit. And it gives you some really great questions to ask your kids. And the reason why I give facts, because anybody can go look them up. Anybody can go to the NCMEC website, right, and look stuff up. They can look and see that there were 29 million reported child sexual abuse material pieces of data last year. And that was what was reported,
Right.
right? They can go look that up. So that's a fact they can start with. And facts are benign. There's really no emotion around it. So it's a really simple way to start a conversation. Very simple, like, so honey, I was listening, I was watching this really cool YouTube by this fabulous warrior by the name of Lynn, and she interviewed this fun woman by the name of Jan, and they were talking about human trafficking and exploitation. And they defined some stuff, and they talked about how sometimes these predators use direct messages to get to our kids. And I was thinking, on my Instagram, I've gotten some weird messages from people that I don't know. Has that ever happened to you? Maybe shut up.
Yes. I
They
get
don't move.
these
Yeah,
weird kind of like almost foreign names, and it's always a man's picture in a profile.
always,
I got about 3 of
always.
them last week. Of course,
Yep.
I just delete them,
And
but the
that's,
kids,
yeah. And I keep them to show the kids that they're not the only ones, right? I take snapshots, I take pictures of it. And then that's an open-ended question. Like, so, does that ever happen to you? And like, what'd you do? You know, because I think this
Right.
is weird. Like when you ask your kids for advice on stuff like this, they love it, right?
They
It
do
puts them
love
in a
it.
position of
Yeah.
power. And you'll know when you ask the question, they don't have to say a word, and you'll know. And then you just take that little mental note. You don't do anything with it. You just leave the space open and you listen, right? And then you toddle back a couple days later and go, gosh, the other thing they said was, sometimes these guys, they just want pictures and they use flattery and appreciation. And, sometimes they'll send money via Cash App. And I thought, gosh, I don't even know what I would do if somebody asked me for a picture like that. Has anybody ever, any of your friends, have they ever, happened to them? Like, can you just be quiet? And if you come with a curious mind and you come with some compassion, because they're, remember, prefrontal cortex, decision-making part of the brain, not fully cooked yet. They don't know. Everyone's doing it, air quote, right? At some point in time, they're going to come to you. It could be days later. It could be weeks later. And they're going to look all fidgety. And they're going to go, do you remember that conversation we had about the thing and the DMs and they're going to be bright red. They can't look at you, right? Their toes are going to be, there's going to be fidgety. And you're going to go, yeah, honey, I do remember. What's up? You're going to go, well, I did this thing and I'm scared and I don't know how to get out of it. And I don't want you to be disappointed. And the tears will start to come, right? And all there is to do the next 3 seconds, the most important 3 seconds in that child's life and yours. All they want to hear is that you love them, you've got their back, and it'll work out. That's all they want to hear. And that's all there is for you to say. It's like, honey, it's okay. It's not your fault. We got
And give them a
this.
big hug. I'd give a big hug at the same time.
Absolutely. We got this. Kiss them on the forehead, give them a big hug, let them cry. We've got this. I've got your back. It's not your fault. It's okay. And then parents, here's what there is to do. Your immediate reaction is sometimes to go harm this person or delete the information. Please don't do that. You got to keep the material, and you're going to call your either your local non-emergency number, or if it's like if this person's being threatening, you call 911 and they'll send a police officer out. And the challenge, as you and I both know, is not all local police officers are trained in this. So there's a variety of things they can say. It's not a problem. They don't know. So that's not your fault. And you can smile as a parent and go, look, this person is threatening and coercing my child who's under the age of 18, just like they would in person, except this is online. This is a crime. And I'm asking you to file a report. And then you want to call NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and make sure you report it, because they have a warehouse of data. One of my bestest friends is now up there, is working with all the analysts. They're actually working with multiple cases across the country of people that do exactly that. And they will work with local law enforcement to get all the data that they need to bring someone to justice and to keep our kids safe. So as much as that initial reaction is going to be anger, frustration, whatever that is, you just got to take a deep breath. Be, honey, it's okay. It's not your fault. We're going to take care of this. I got your back. Or some version thereof.
And I think I'm always pointing out with the Warriors, Jan, that every parent should have an action plan in place. And hopefully you never have to use it. But for instance, I always do suggest with NCMEC, the cyber tip line.
Yes.
Because here in New York, I'm in New York City. There's not a lot of attention. They're not going to answer. So I don't want people getting discouraged at all. Go right to the cyber tip line. Obviously try your 911, but I've had people say to me, I tried that. They don't answer. They ignore me. They don't want to come out.
When you're
they
in big cities,
cyber tip line. That's where I go. It's
cyber tip line. Me too.
It's the most amazing. I just want to share that website is missingkids.org. And that is a wealth of knowledge, one that the Warriors, we use all the time to use their stats, their studies, to use their facts and truths to share. Because like you said, facts and truth, it's true. It's truth. Who can debate?
It's exactly. You can't argue it. I mean,
you can't argue it. But... And I want to just reinforce, I've been talking a lot about sextortion. because it
Mhm.
is so escalating. A
Yes.
recent report stated that teenage boys are being targeted with that one. And I was
Yeah.
happy to see on, let's see, Sunday, I was in a diner in New Jersey. We have our diners, and
Wow. I
up on,
love diners.
I know I love diners. They're like my favorite. And up on the TV set, CNN was covering a very sad story about a 17-year-old boy who, after sending an image and was being, send me $5,000, it got all the way down to 150. Straight A student. This brave mom was there talking about it, raising awareness and sharing. I have two questions. Give me your thoughts on sextortion. Everybody needs to know about this. Okay.
Yes.
And also, and this might be a whole separate program, Jan, but why are the kids, what are your thoughts on? I think about this a lot. Why are the kids so willing to take their clothes off and share these images? I can see even getting involved in the conversations because the kids are so vulnerable and they are so
Mhm.
beaten down and lonely and want to communicate.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly shocked at why so many
Yeah.
kids just take their clothes off and share these images and think nothing of it.
Everybody's doing it. I'm going to answer the first question, last question first. So I have lots of theories on that, but my best answer to that is for your warriors to go watch a couple of films back to back. I use these films all the time when I go out and talk to people, and I give them assignments. So this is your assignment, warriors. There's two films. One is called Miss, MISS Representation, and
Okay.
it's about the commoditization of women over time. And then it's got a sister film or brother film, so to speak, called The Mask You Live In. And it's about the suppression of men's emotions. And when you watch, you got to watch them together. You can't watch one without the other because they tell both sides of the coin of the story of how we got to where we are. And Lynn, you and I are of an age, we remember watching, and for some of you, reruns of Lucy, right? And Dick Van Dyke Show. They slept in separate beds,
Right.
right? There was nothing that, and Lucy couldn't even be seen on TV when she was pregnant,
Right.
right? Now we have live births on YouTube. Okay. You can go to any television show and see not quite, but almost full blown sex. So we have fed these images to our children over time so that it's normalized.
So they're
Not
habituated. Right.
absolutely. So, I have things to say about that, but that will answer the question is how did we get here? You'll see the intentional commoditization of women. And, there's so many great, beautiful songs out there about we're not our body. We have one and we're not one. But yet the world has told us to judge each other by that body. And that's not what we're here for. Right. And so that's my opinion, the answer to the second question you asked. It's been normalized,
Yes.
it's been expected. And, if you listen to a lot of the music today's music, not our time, not even the 70s or 80s and some of the 90s, but the music today, there's a lot of language used about the degradation of women.
Yes.
So there's that. Can you ask the first question again?
About sextortion. Let's talk a little
Sextortion,
bit
yeah.
about
Well, yeah,
sextortion.
there's two things, there's two pieces of that, sextortion and doxing, right? So doxing is generally used against an older adult, and it would literally be, I would consider it blackmail, right? A digital form of blackmail. I interviewed a woman who'd been doxed. She was over in China, started dating this guy. For her, it was a legitimate relationship. Like he courted her just like you would do. And several months in, they became intimate. What she didn't know is he was recording it,
Mm.
and then he uploaded it, and then he would threaten her for money. If you don't send me X amount of money or nude pictures or whatever, so they can buy, sell, and trade online, I'm going to send this video out. Well, like over time, right? She did what she could, and they eventually sent the video to her bosses. She got fired for something she did consensually, which was the sex, but did not consent to having it videotaped or shared. and they followed her. They tried to hack into her bank accounts. I mean, that is the highest form of extortion with sex around. Now, for younger people, the moment, and that's the thing I talk to kids and with parents, the moment they send a picture, any picture that could be used against them, there's no getting that picture back. And they will use threats to either if you either don't send me more pictures, because they're going to make more money that way, or if you don't send me money, I'm going to share these pictures out on your entire social media. And that's devastating to a child. That's why I believe our suicide rates are up, because they've done or said something online that they can't take back, and people are threatening them, and they're embarrassed to talk to their parents, which is why it's so important for parents to create that safe space for their kids to talk about anything, including this, that they are being intentionally targeted for that.
Yes.
And if someone ever threatens you, that is against the law, and you have every right to let someone know about it. And I also know not everybody has a safe home. I know that too. So there are trusted adults in our children's lives that we've got to be okay with them going to them. I made sure my daughter had several other adults besides me that she could talk to, because she's going to listen from, a particular way from me, but she'll listen to other people. They could say the same thing and they're brilliant, right? I could say the same thing and I'm an idiot because I'm a mom. It's just part of parenting.
Well, I'm right there with you. So, it's.
So to be able to have our kids have a safe space to talk to people about these kinds of challenging topics. And that's why having coaches trained and social workers and teachers and, mentors all educated on this. So when their, mentee comes to them and they don't know what to do, you do. Because that's what they're looking to us for, is we know what to do and we can help.
Excellent information, because Jan, I worry about our vulnerable kids, truly vulnerable. We talk as, concerned parents, compassionate parents.
Yeah.
A lot of these kids,
they don't have
targeted. They don't have anybody at home.
And if they do, they're not home. They're working because they're trying to provide. Because
exactly. And so we know that is a problem, that the predators know how to really break into those kids who are extremely vulnerable. I mean, you're vulnerable anyway as a teenager, as a child. It was shocking to learn over the last few months. We had this advisory put out on December 7th, 2021 about the rare, they called it a rare advisory. I called it a report. It was 53 pages on the mental health of our youth. And nobody, I covered it right away. I continue to cover it. I continue giving it out as a resource to parents. 53 pages. To me,
I downloaded it.
Me too. I'm like printing it out. I'm holding it up for people. I'm like, go and read this. Mainstream media, they don't like to cover any of this, but we know that already. I don't want to sit here and say, look, they're about web traffic. They're about clicks and likes. They don't want the nuts and bolts, is what I consider we talk about, Paving the Way Foundation, the Warriors. They want the Epstein stories. So people will say, why don't I hear this on the news? And I'm like, it's too real for them. It is too much the truth and facts, and they don't want people to switch the channel or something of that. But I was happy to see CNN covering this sextortion and getting it out there, because every single time we have any kind of conversation, anything online, anything TV, cable, like I consider that a win. I don't care who puts it out. I want to remind everybody, bipartisan issue, belongs to no political party. These are human rights abuses against families, against children. These are crimes, belongs to nobody. We all have to get involved with all of this.
We do.
Jan, let's talk about a little bit. We're both on national, calls for different bills we're working on right now. We've both been extremely involved with the Earn It Act. And explain for our audience a little bit what that's about. And where we stand with that, and why we need everybody, every single person watching, listening, to get involved. The public, you're all warriors, to help us with this. We cannot do it alone. We need everybody.
So the Earn It Act is really, really simple. And it's both on the House side and the Senate side. And for those of you that remember your civics courses, you have to have a House bill and a Senate bill for it to become a law. or the ABC morning cartoons, right, that talked about the Constitution.
Right.
And the Earn It Act really does three primary things. Okay, one, it requires big tech companies. So that would be your Metas, your TikToks, your Kicks, your Amigos, your
Twitters,
Roblox, any gaming video, all of those, that if someone reports that there is child sexual abuse material on their site, they have to take it down in less than 24 hours. They have to take it down the moment they get it, right? So there's no more hanging on to that for clicks and follows. The second thing it does is it actually gives survivors of online exploitation, sexploitation, and sextortion opportunities for remuneration, right? Big tech has really made their money on the backs of our children. No one wants to talk about that. No one wants to say that. And their big don't vote yes for this is it has something to do with privacy. This bill has nothing to do with your online privacy. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is really about keeping our kids safe. And then the third piece that I actually, quite frankly, it is my third favorite part, is they're going to create a commission of survivors and tech companies to work this out together, because the internet's not going away. Web 3.0 is right around the corner. You've got AI, you've got, the metaverse with all these things coming in, you've got virtual reality. None of this is going away. So we've got to figure out how to work inside the machine, so to speak. And this bill allows it to do this. Now, here's the other piece too, because I have several law enforcement friends, most of which that they're like, we need to actually implement the laws we have now, including FOSTA SESTA, because this is in that same neighborhood. The difference between this bill and that bill is big tech is really hid behind the CDA 230 immunity clause, that you're not held responsible for what sits on. Well, we didn't know what was going to happen in 1996 when we wrote that bill. We didn't know that. At the time, it was accurate because no one foresaw what was coming. Well, much like other things out in our world, we don't drive Model Ts anymore, right? We don't have big shoes for cell phones. So it's time to update and upgrade that bill. And this piece of legislation does that. Because here's the thing, 29 million CSAM reports, child sexual abuse material. That's those reports. Now, if you use the same math, Lynn, as rape reporting, right? 1 in 5, do the math. That's almost all of our children.
It's unthinkable. Like I can't even think.
Yeah, that's like
unthinkable, right?
Million reports and I assert it's up in that space because not everything's reported.
I agree.
Right. And so this requires the moment, just like, our friend Lisa has that John Doe case against Twitter, just like that, that little kid, he was 13. He thought he was talking to a 16-year-old. He walks into school 2 years later and his buddies are like, is that you?
Right.
They had strung all of those pictures together and created a pornographic video. He called Twitter at 15 going, hi, here's my school ID. I'm not 18, nor did I agree to this. Please take this down. They said, no, it didn't offend their community.
I never understood that. I had Lisa on the radio program talking about, I didn't understand Twitter telling him it doesn't.
And then his mom did the same thing. Like this kid was going to take his life over this. Right. Thankfully, one of his friends intervened. Mom made the call. Same response. It wasn't until 9 or 10 days later that when she was lamenting to her pastor that he's like, I happen to know someone in the FBI. Let me see what I can do. So from day 1 to day 9, 167,000 views. Mm-hmm. The damage that's done. And I have survivor friends that say, I pray to God that my kids never find a picture of me online.
Yes, they live constant fear for the rest of they tell me
constant fear.
And they say, oh, I don't know if I walk into the supermarket, somebody's staring at me. Did they see me online? They said it is a constant that they live with, which I never thought about till fairly, recently. This is the burden on your brain and then for a child. And do you remember, Jan, I think you were on that call when the mom spoke. It was heartbreaking. We don't want that for any parent, any family member, any child to hear.
And the fact that they could have taken it down and they didn't. That's the
that they
thing that
have to be
just
held,
gets
big
me.
tech has to be held accountable. I want to point
They
out
do.
2 other things about Earn It.
Yeah.
People have said to me, oh, I've looked it up, I've Googled it. Oh, it's terrible after I talk about Earn It. I want to tell everybody that there is a very well-funded PR media campaign, lots of dough behind it, everybody, pushing a narrative that is not true.
Yeah.
Jan pointed out that has nothing to do with privacy, nothing at all. This is the best solution in 2022 to keep our kids safe online. I'm going to say, do not believe anything you read, of course, unless Jan and I wrote it, but you cannot because also with the algorithms on big tech, let's just be honest, Jan, it's just going to be one after the other articles
Of course.
bashing Earn It.
Well, they own it. That Google, hello,
Exactly. And I was going to say,
Google and
so
Facebook and Twitter,
right,
and
they
they
don't want
all own
anybody
that space.
interrupting the
They
money
have no
cycles, and
desire
no
to stop
desire
this
to help. And I also
flow.
want to point out that, and you might have been on this phone call also when I learned that this section, the 230 was developed to keep kids safe originally. Were you? I don't know if you were on that.
I don't think
And I
on
was
the
like, then I
call.
started doing my research about that, and I'm like, wow. So you think they'd want to update it? Like even on all our devices, we get these constant, we're updating this, we're updating that. You think they'd want to update it. Again, warriors, it's about,
One would think.
money. And also Earn It is the best solution. Now, Jan, how is everybody going to participate? Explain to them what they do.
Really simple. So
Very
Lynn's
simple.
going to put the links
Yes.
to the House and your Senate
No,
reps.
I'm putting everything when we're done.
Yeah. So the links are right below. You click on that link, you click on your state, and you find your representative, and you pick up the phone and you make that call and say exactly what I said before, which is hi. And if I'm going to use mine, hi, Rep Soto, this is Jan Edwards. And by the way, my rep's office knows my name by now. This is Jan Edwards. I live in Orlando,
They actually
Florida.
have a bed there for you. They let you
Exactly. It's like,
camp
it's
out.
Jan calling again. But that's our job, right? That's our
They
job.
work for us. I have to remind
citizen.
people, Jan, they work for us. I know.
Yeah.
This is their job. This is their job.
This is their job, and this is our job. They can't make any kind of alterations without knowing how we feel. And if you look at legislation, powerful legislation that's been passed in the past, even 10 to 15 years, right? The VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, huge win for women that have been violated. Huge win. The TVPA, right, for trafficking survivors
Victims.
and thrivers,
Protection
and victims,
Act, right?
yeah, that they actually have there's money set aside so they can get services, right? So none of that would have. I promise you, very few representatives or senators wake up one morning and go, I think I'm going to write a bill for this, if they don't know about it. And there's so much information out in the world, it's easy to get information overload. So how could they know about it if no one in their life or their family's been affected by it? And so it's our job as citizens to stand up and share and pick up the phone and call and ask them to take an action, because they are our representatives in Washington, D.C. And that can be anything from the Earn It Act to the mental health clause bill to, making sure that we have land later, right? That we've got national parks later. It can, whatever your passion is, I promise you, there's a bill or will be a bill that you can help move through. And the same thing at the state level. People forget about the state level. Those are your representatives. You voted them in. It's your job to let them know how you feel. Now you can be polite about it and firm, right? What is it? Reckless love or fearless love,
But people, Jan, don't even realize I'm doing a lot of that. Yes, they work for us and they want to hear from you. And
they do.
I don't care if it's the voicemail, you call and also email, put it in writing. You just a little elbow grease. You have to, because you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And so I'm pushing that out a lot, that we all have a voice.
Yeah.
And that we need to. We live in this environment now more than ever. Like we have to speak up.
They all have local offices.
Yes.
You can toddle down to the local office if you want to have a face-to-face. They do Zoom town halls, participate in that. And I encourage every single American citizen to one day in your lifetime get in your car, hop on a plane or a train, and go to DC and meet with your representative.
Mm.
You don't have to be anybody special other than a citizen. They represent you. And when I say they want to hear from you, I'm not kidding. And you can do the same thing at the state level and same thing at the local level. They work for us. And it's imperative that we, the people, remember that. And that one phone call, that one, email, that one letter, that one flyby, you go up for 24 hours. There's flights from all over the country that you can fly in, fly out the next day. It's not like you have to stay forever. And you go in and talk to your representatives. They want to hear from
It's
you.
very
They
empowering.
need
It's
to hear
very
from you. It
empowering
is.
to be in, the halls of Congress
Mhm,
and to stop in. And,
mhm.
it's something I agree
Yeah.
with you. Everybody, it's a good piece of advice.
Everyone should, and I rarely use the word should, but I'm gonna,
No, I'm
that's an
saying should.
opportunity everyone should take. Every at eighth grade, almost every eighth grade class takes a trip up to DC. So just go along and stop in and say hi to your representative and let them know how you feel about things, right? They're only going to vote how you say. And if you don't say, it's called implied consent. Because when we were talking about something, I don't remember the topic, but a friend of mine goes, "Oh, it doesn't matter." And I said, "No, actually it does." I said, "If you don't tell them how you feel, that's implied consent. You can look that up. It's real." So
Yes.
we are the ones to make the difference. And we just invite you to partner with us, pick up the phone and call your senator or your representative about the Earn It Act and let them know how you feel. Read it first so you can stand with us. We're clear about it. I'm not going to go over all the, languaging, but I'm clear what it's going to do for our young people. And it's really updating what needs to be updated given the current environment.
And again, it's the best solution we have in
It is.
2022. And I just want everybody to realize, I always say the internet, it's like they operate under, they're like a great big billboard that anybody can throw any kind of material on it they want. When, as Jan thoroughly explained, we have this CSAM, this CSAM, we talk about this child sexual abuse material that is so rampant and escalating and harming our children and our families. I'm going to have all the information, of course, Jan, when we're done, all of your links and everything about Earn It. But let's finish up with, let's talk about Paving the Way Foundation. What do you want to report on it? What's happening?
Sure. So
anything that's going on. I know you always have so much stuff going on. I want to hear about it. Let's go.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's super exciting. So we just expanded out into South Dakota. I had a 2-week
You were there,
Midwestern
right?
road trip. Yeah. And one of my friends who's a survivor warrior is like, you need to come out here. That no one knows this. I've been to a couple of trainings. It didn't go well. We need your material out here. So I went from Racine, Wisconsin to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for a week. And we did several trainings, and we've got probably 3 or 4 churches that are right on board with us. We've got homeschool moms that are hopping on board, and dads, and dads groups that are getting involved, and it's just exploding out there, which is great because there's not a whole lot of content available, curriculum out there, which is it's magical. And so that's really exciting. So I just got my okie dokie from the government of South Dakota. I'm an official 501c3 out there, so that's
okay.
fun.
Perfect. I love it.
I know. Yeah. And the other thing too is, we're working on our mobile app. I don't want to say too much about it because people do like to steal people's ideas, and we're getting great feedback from young people. They want the power in their hands.
Yes.
They're tired of being told what to do. So that's really the purpose of our mobile app. And then the last 2 things I'll leave you with is I finished writing the sequel to my first film. And so we're shopping around for production houses and so we can go get some funding for this. It's the 3 or 4 people I've allowed to read it say it's really good. So it's got some action, it's got some twists, it's got education really woven all through it.
Good. Mm-hmm.
And this one has a happy ending. So I think people will like that. And the last thing is, we're getting ready to launch a podcast with one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Joseph Scaramucci. And actually it's with a production house out of New York. And I'm super excited about that because we're going to literally talk the whole gamut. And because Joe is on live recoveries every single week,
right?
That's great content. And then because we're out in the field talking with kids, So we really do cover the full gamut of from prevention to apprehension, and focusing on demand and focusing on prevention and focusing on recovery and restoration, and why it's so important that we as a community support those organizations doing the heavy lifting, ensuring every single human being that is recovered, that chooses to come out of that life, has a shot, like a real shot, to live the life they want, as opposed to life they thought they had to have.
Powerful, Jan.
Thank
Jan
you.
Edwards, President, Paving the Way Foundation. Warriors, the website is pavingthewayfoundation.org. I know, Jan, if you have any questions for Jan, you can write to her.
Absolutely.
Jan Edwards, if anybody's going to get the job done, I know it's you. You're one of the biggest warriors, not only in Florida, around the entire country. I adore you. I use all your information. I love you dearly. Be safe, stay well, and thank you for all the work you do. You truly are a warrior.
Thank you. Love you too. And love your warriors. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.